This is AJ Wachtel. Welcome to my podcast, Wachtelligence, where I discuss with my guests the past, present, and future of the local and national music scene with a focus on Boston and New England. Today's episode, Jimmy Harold, the cat who owned the rat, is about the life and career of a true visionary. Almost 50 years ago, his singular acts and efforts changed the local and national music industry, and his club, The Rat, was the launching pad for a lot of punk music artists, and his generosity and support throughout the decades is nothing short of legendary. I can't wait to hear what this local icon has to say. Welcome to Wachtelligence, Jimmy.
Thank you.
You first started out at the Kenmore Club with Mickey O'Halloran, my mentor, who used to run the Beat magazine, Bunratty's, Harper's Ferry, Jumbo's, Jasper's, Sir Morgan's Cove, and you guys were doormen there, correct?
That is correct.
And what happened after that? You went to after a couple of years. You left there and you went to work across the street at what was TJ's, which is what the Rat was called beforehand, correct?
That is correct.
What happened?
Absolutely. I left the Kenmore Club before that, and actually I worked in a couple of places. Up north. I opened Kings Row 3 in Lawrence. Had a contract with them. And another club I worked in up there was the Three Copper Men in Lowell. And at that time, I knew a lot of musicians and stuff, and they were, I met more people, and it kind of expanded my experience in the business. And then what happened was TJ's, he leased the downstairs out to two guys, and they were going to split up one way or another. So they actually, both of them asked me if I'd be their partner. So it was the opening to get in the door. So I did that. And then after about, I think probably a year, I bought the other partner out. And believe me, when I went in there, I had nothing. And I was actually putting tar on roofs and working at night during the day and working at night. And it was a tough go, but I had an idea, and I knew I couldn't compete because of the size of the club with disco and all of the other stuff that was going on. So one of the things that I always knew, musicians like to play their own stuff. They'd sneak a song in and everything, but the audience hardly ever knew it. They just didn't know the song, that's all.
Right.
And I met, I knew some of these kids, and I kind of I was feeling my way through. I was trying to even I think a John Lincoln Wright played, a bunch of different people play, different type of music, but I had to find that one thing, and I didn't know what it was until probably about a year into the Rat, maybe a little more, maybe about a year and a half, the light went on. I went to a wedding down the Cape, and I ended up meeting a friend of mine from school, and he owned an Irish bar in Falmouth, and we sat down at the table with these other people, and they were all bar owners, but most of them were doing country western, and so the talk was going around the table from left to the right, and it started with my friend who was sitting next to me going around. So I was the last person who was going to say anything about anything. And as I went around and I listened to them talk about business, and everything was great. I'm still sucking up knowledge and, what other people are doing. When it got back to me, I said, you got to see a band. They're so fucking bad. You got to stand great. It was Mickey cleaning the mez. And boy, boom, the light went on. I said, I know what I'm going to do. I know how I'm going to do this, and I'm going to live with it. And I made my decision right then and there. That's the way we're going to go. And if I fail, at least I go with some music.
Well, when it was TJ's, they used to have the Remains, Barry and the Remains,
Right.
The Mods with Harry Sandler, who's now in charge of the Music Museum of New England. He was in the Boston's band, Orpheus, and Willie Alexander's band, The Lost, used to play there. How come you changed the name to the Rathskeller?
I had to get rid of I needed my own identity. And I always liked the name. And when I was at school, there was a place I would frequent once in a while called the Rathskeller. It was in the Drake Hotel in Amherst. And I always liked the place. And it kind of was like a basement room, just like this was. There was so many similarities, the concrete walls, and I mean, up there was stone, but it was very similar in the height of the ceiling. It was just a similar thing, and I said, I'm going to stick with that, and I went and changed the name to the Rathskeller.
My first show there was in 1974 when I saw the Malls, and that was with an electric bassoonist.
The Malls.
Yeah. With an electric bassoonist. Weren't they a great band?
Down at Kenmore Square, saw her standing there in the rain. She took off my hat, sat down on my lap in the rain. She was my PG baby, and I don't mean baby as a rat.
Hey, so let's talk about some of the people at the Rathskeller. Let's talk about Mitch. You two became friends in the mid-'60s, and he was the doorman there. You worked for him as a doorman at Sonny's in Kenmore Square. Where was Sonny's?
Sonny's was downstairs. The Pizzeria Uno,
right
downstairs. That's where that was, And Pizzeria Uno was the waiters all served the beer with the hats, sawdust on the floor, pitchers of beer, banjo playing all the time, banjo bands, and then in the corner there was another club. It was called Mothers, and I actually worked at Mothers. That's how I met Mitch. Mitch was downstairs in Sonny's. And I was working the door at Mother's, and that was a place where it was very exclusive. It was, it wasn't very big, but it had 3 bars in there, and all the athletes used to come in there. Joe Namath, and Tony Calignaro, all those people who'd go to that place. That was way before Daisy Buchanan's. Mother's was like, wow, pretty interesting place, and I worked the door there.
So why'd you ask him to join you at the Rat?
When I started getting going, and I didn't tell anybody who I was. I just did my job, and I needed a front man and somebody respectable. And Mitch was the perfect fit. And I told him all about what I was doing. And he was working over in Watertown someplace, and he was just playing his horn and stuff. And I said, you want to come? Why don't you come away? I do the same thing he did to me. I'll just come in for a couple of days. A couple of days turns into a week, 7 days a week. Like that type of thing. And that's what happened. Mitch came, and I gave him, freedom of, you take care of this end of this, and just one less thing I have to deal with. And it was a fantastic relationship. The people loved him.
And you looked good in the suit, right?
And it was great for me. It was great because, they didn't know who owned the Rat. It's more people were coming in, different people. Everybody was kind of assuming he owned the place. And that was fine with me, What can I say,
Well, Mitch used to be at the door in a suit, a jacket and tie, and he lost his voice.
He used to come to work, and he'd come in when Granny was in. Granny was in there really early, 5 o'clock or something like that.
Right.
Mitch used to come in, and he used to put his cassette tapes in the sound system
of him playing saxophone.
And yeah, alto sax he played. And he, and so there were times he would do this. And one of the times he did was unbelievable. Martha and the Vandellas, the Motels. That's the band. Martha Reeves, I can't think of the last name.
Yeah.
Anyways, but that band, they came from California. And they had 2 horn players in the band. And when they had a dressing room upstairs. So Mitch would happen to be up there. And so he saw the kid had a horn. He was talking to him. About 20 minutes later, I was looking for Mitch, and I couldn't figure out where the hell he went. You know, he went somewhere. And he was, you know, like, he went home and got us on. He came back, and he played it upstairs. And the guys in the band was just like, oh, my God, you should have heard that. Oh, my word. You know, it was just, you know, it was just so cool. I mean, things like that are really cool.
Was he in his jacket and tie on stage?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, let's talk about Mr. Butch.
Tell me. Hero.
Yeah, Mr. Butch, I saw him, Mr. Butch and the Holy Men play there. Did you ban him from playing there after that?
Did I ban him?
Yes.
I banned him a couple of times. I like Butch. Butch was just, he was a character.
The mayor of Kenmore Square?
I wish I could get the video. We have him outside. We had Steve Cataldo from the Eaters. He was with a microphone interviewing people on the street. And we were doing this as an ad thing. And Mr. Butch is there standing there to get his attention and lit the newspaper on fire. And he's holding the newspaper, burning up in his hands. It's like, Butch, you're going to go on fire. Like, oh, my God. But he was he was very helpful in a lot of ways. I really don't care to go into, but he was very observant of things going on. And believe me, he wasn't all of what people thought he was.
Oh, I know that.
And he was very clever.
You know,
he'd
ask me for money. He'd ask me for money sometimes, and I'd say, Butch, you know, I live check to check. I have the money. Then he'd pull a wad of cash out of his own pocket and ask me if I needed anything.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Let's talk about the Hoodoo Barbecue. James Ryan was a chef, and he was with you from 1980 to 87. How did that happen?
When I was doing the first album, I had done a couple of singles. And so what happened, I did, I think, 3 singles. And what happened was we decided to have a record release party. And somebody said, well, what are you going to serve? And I said, geez, I have really no idea. And a couple of people had mentioned me about the Rainbow Rib Room. And I said, yeah, that's fine with me, like that. And that's how I met Ryan. So Ryan came in and did that thing that night. We had a big ice sculpture of a rat with a record in its mouth, a 45 in its mouth. But Ryan was talking about, ribs. And the more we talked about it, the more then I pulled him aside and I said, we need to talk. We'll talk, And it happened within a month. Probably.
Well,
he came in there.
He was as generous as you. That was the same brilliant mindset. He fed countless hungry musicians over the years. He gave jobs to members of bands like Del Fuegos, the Niche, Scruffy the Cat, the Blackjacks, Swinging E's, as fry cooks, prep staff, and boiler persons. You two are a match made in heaven.
Yeah, I went to his wedding. I mean, we were friends, and not only, he leased the place, basically. He had a deal with me, and I was happy with the deal. I think he was happy with the deal. There was no stress. I did not interfere with his operation in the kitchen one iota. That's something you have to do. You have to let Mitch do what he's going to do. And everything will fall in line. One less thing I have to worry about.
I want to talk about some of the legendary shows. I mean, for me, I mean, the Thrills, the Neighborhoods, the Real Kids, Till Tuesday. I remember seeing Tiny Tim there downstairs in a packed room with the Swinginies opening with Johnny Angel's band. You know, or every marathon gig with the Bristols or Golden Joe Baker. You know, you just had so many great bands. I remember once for the Edgar Winter Band, you had them in, you knew I was tight with the Winter Brothers, and you asked me to MC the show and the raffle. You put me in the band rider for the first time. It said something like, people, take care of AJ, bartenders, take care of AJ, but no more than 6 beers. And I want you to know that they fed me beers the whole night. But I was a cheap date. You and Mickey knew that. It cost you 3 or 4 cents for a draft beer. You give me 6 or 7, and I was happy.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, making profit there.
Yeah, you had the Runaways there. Tell me about that gig.
Oh, that was great. I saw the Runaways in New York. I saw them at CBGBs. It was the middle of the summer. Otto and I drove down, and there was a line. There had to be 600, 800 people in the line, CBGBs, to get in. And that's where I saw them, and I actually met a couple of them there. And I booked them right away. I booked them in as soon as I could, and then they canceled. But they came back to do it. So I had them 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And at the same time, Iggy was playing Monday night at the Sanders Theater in Cambridge, and Bowie was playing keyboards, and Blondie was opening up. So everybody wanted, So I went over there. I had to do the thing because I knew the Blondie. I knew the band. Anyways, so I went over. It was a personal invitation for them to come. It was no big. But one of the things was I needed them to let me know some kind of phase of time, because it was going to be so crowded. It was just, it was packed. I mean, it was just packed. The night of the show, I got them and I got them upstairs, and I used one of the spare rooms upstairs for the girls. And now my security had to be, I know Iggy's coming. Okay. Ron Delsner, he booked that show over there, wasn't a local booking. Delsner's from New York. So I had somebody watch out back, these limos. And they come. But meantime, Iggy comes in. So Iggy wants to see the show. So we had a very few chairs left downstairs. So I walked over and I saw this, kid sitting on the chair. So I said to the kid, I says, I need your chair. And the kid looks at me and he goes, yeah, but you got the, and I said, here's your money. I need the chair. And he turned around and he looked in awe, because it was Iggy, how he was getting his seat. And he was like that. That's Richie Parsons. That was Richie Parsons underage in my club.
Yeah.
Telling people that he was a reporter for the Dorchester Town newspaper or something. Freaking. As a matter of fact, when he turned 21, he asked me if I'd buy him a drink for his birthday. And I said, yeah, I'll buy you a drink. No problem. I walked over to him, and he says, my first legal drink. Thank you.
That's funny.
But anyways, that night, Iggy's upstairs. Iggy come up, saw the girls. Deborah, she came back. She came in my office, and then she talked to the girls.
Joan Jett, Lita Ford.
Bowie went in, and the girls were almost flipping out. Like,
you introduced them to him,
huh?
Didn't you introduce them to David Bowie?
Yeah. But it wasn't hard to tell it was David Bowie.
Yeah, I hear you.
Ricky's brother was bringing him upstairs. He's going, it's David Bowie. It's David Bowie. So, okay, chill out. Everything's fine, you know. And he took one of the Rat albums. And I really wanted to tell him that Nolan wrote a song about him in it, but I just left that alone.
Richie Nolan. All right. What about the Police played there? The Ramones, Thin Lizzy, the Jam. You had a lot of great bands there.
Yep.
All right, let's talk about the Cars. Why did you like the band when you first saw the Cars?
I saw Captain's
Swing.
I saw Captain Swing, but I knew Rick and Ben. I didn't know them like I got to know them, but we kind of had a good rapport back and forth about things. And in that particular time, when David joined the group, you know, he left DMZ and all that, and we used to hang together, and we used to go out and eat and do things together and stuff like that. And I got to hear the album before anybody did the first album out. And as a matter of fact, I played it for a friend of mine in New York, you know, on a Tomato deck. But I used to listen to all my cassette tapes, and it was like mono. And that's what I liked about when I listened to the bands, I could hear this. So when I had the Cars album, I was like, wow, it was really, really good. And I knew it, and they played for me, and I knew it, and I got, you know, more and more friendly with them. And then they gave me a platinum album and stuff, and Ben and I became very good friends for a long time. And both him and David, they've been in my houses and everything like that. And you know, I had a great relationship with people in the band. And you know, it's hard to believe it's over, but you know, it's life, I guess.
Hey, a fun fact about the Cars and the Rat is that lead guitarist Elliot Easton met his wife Jill Glass there, and they've been married for eons and eons, happily married for eons and eons. She was a waitress there.
Yep.
And Elliot told me recently. I asked him a little, you know, to give me a comment on your legacy, and he goes, you know, Jimmy was a good friend to the young musicians of Boston. Jimmy was always kind and fair to what was basically a bunch of kids with stars in their eyes. How true is that?
Boy, he hit the nail on the head with that one, that's for sure.
You know, and I mean, other bands like the Pixies, the Motels, Metallica, the Talking Heads, the Dead Kennedys, you just had them all.
Yeah.
You know, what, you know, and you were talking before, you and I were talking, you mentioned CBGBs in New York City, a big nightclub in the city. Was the Rat the CBGBs of the North, and was CBGBs the Rat of the South?
Probably, yeah. There was another club in New York too, Max's. Max's was another club that was, I was doing business with both these clubs, but I did a lot of business with Hilly. And Hilly and I kind of saw the same type of thing together, although he had a different way, the way he worked and the way I worked, like night and day. But the music was the driving force of, you know, how we thought about things. And I remember, and again, an example of it is we were doing business with a lot of the English bands. And I would tell them to go to CBGBs, or, you know, and they could tell people to go to Boston, you go to the Rat. So I was doing some business with Copeland Brothers. And Ian Copeland was a booking agent at the time. And he sent me all the English bands, Chelsea, many English bands, and some of them were really great.
Right.
So he gave me a tape of his brother's band, and it was a cassette tape, and he was looking for dates, but he needed me to talk to Hilly to see if I could fill in, you know, to get them to play a couple more nights at CB's or something like that. He gave me the tape, and we're doing business, and oh my God, didn't listen to it. It's just hard to imagine that I didn't listen, especially when his brother was in the band. I was like,
Right.
I don't know what happened. So one night, it was a Thursday night, and he called me, and he said to me, "Did you play the tape?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I did." Liar! I lied to him. I was like, Jesus, if he asked me a question about it, what's the name of the song? I wouldn't have known. So I lied to him. So at the end of the night, and something's bugging you, and you're saying, "Gee, there's something I gotta do." And all of a sudden, one of the bartenders came upstairs, Mike Hopper, and he said, "Hey, can we put some music on?" Because we used to put all real cool stuff on Kale and all this other.
Right.
And I said, "Oh, find this effing tape. You got to play this, right?" Roxanne. I said, "Oh, wow." I picked the phone up and called Hilly and said, "I'm going to take this band. They're coming for 7 days, and I'm going to take them Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday," because he was very reluctant in giving guys more than one night. And I said, "You should take them both nights down there and let them travel on the third day." But they didn't. They actually played down in Connecticut. And he said, "2 nights." And I said, "Trust me." And he said, "All right, I won't be." I said, "I'll tell him you said. I'll put the tape down now, And so when I talked to Ian, I says, "Yeah, we're all set." I was like, wow. Boy. And they showed up, the 3 guys in the band, and the roadie. He's since passed on. I can't think of his freaking name. And it was the coolest thing. It was me and Granny and the 4 of them, and it was just like just done. Just like everything was so simple, so easy. And how, oh my God, dealing with bands. I mean, how many,
Right.
the egos and everything else. This was the simplest thing. And they, in turn, years later, they tried to get me to stand up in Boston Garden. Oh. I mean, I sat there. I was getting up. I think Hope and Cindy were with me. Hope and Caroline, Hope and Cindy were with me. And I had a case of beer there, so I was real happy.
We're going to do Roxanne, I think. It's to be a popular tune. We keep hearing it on the radio. Peanuts later on. Okay? Great.
We've heard this so many times on the radio that we've actually learned it now.
Speak for yourself. Speak for yourself.
Okay, well, anything can happen.
Hey, what was the difference in the Boston music scene and the New York music scene at that time? You and Hilly were good friends, and you said that you did things a lot differently, and part of that reason had to be because the scenes were different.
It was different. Some of the bands, I'll give you an example, is like Talking Heads and Orchestra Luna. These guys were playing on a Tuesday, Wednesday night.
Rick
they would
Berlin and
flip off
Orchestra
and
Luna.
flip back to New York and Boston.
Right.
They'd stay at their house, and these guys would stay at their house. There was some kind of good relationship with some of the Boston bands with the New York bands. However, some of the New York bands, I sensed when when Deborah Harry signed with Private Stock, I think people were holding that back as she's not one of us anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she gave in, which I thought was no, it was wrong. Isn't this what it's all about to make it? And you know, that's the goal of the
Right.
musicians, and why would you be jealous?
Right.
You know, and there were people I knew, I mean, musicians in New York that I knew that were really like put out, surprisingly. I mean, I felt bad. I mean, I felt, you know, it didn't make sense to me. That's all.
I'm going to tell you a few quotes that I have about your legacy from people that we've talked about, and just get a quick comment. You and I were just talking about Orchestra Luna, Rick Berlin, who said to me about your legacy, simply, no rat, no scene, no Jimmy Harold, no rat.
Yeah.
Robin Lane said, Jimmy is the sweetest of men, and I love him dearly. I love to be around him and listen to his stories. Hey, I love being around you, and I'm listening to your stories, and I love it right now.
I think she wants a boat trip.
Johnny Angel from the Blackjacks told me, and this is very cool, his legacy as owner of the Rat was recognizing early on that having an endless parade of cover bands in an era where that's more or less all there was besides disco or blues bands was bad for business. Jimmy appreciated that the colorful and offbeat was actually more lucrative because the wave that would eventually drown out the old bar-based entertainment and had strong, real staying power. That took vision. And that's coming from Johnny Angel. And that might be the only time I've ever heard him say anything positive about anybody.
I saw Johnny Angel wrote a liner note, which I wish we did use, but I thought it was really good. And the liner note was for the second recording of the Live at the Rat. And I thought it was very good. Someday I'll find it for you. I was really impressed. I was impressed with it. And I've had my bouts with
I used
Johnny.
to love seeing the Blackjacks at the Rat. Here's a quote from Granny, who we've talked about. You brought up the sound guy for you for the Rat. How did your paths cross, and why did you choose Granny to run the sound, you tell me? And he said, I believe the legacy is an honest, single-fingered salute challenge to anywhere, anyone to top that. I wish somebody would try. And I think that's a pretty good, quote about you. And you're grinning too.
Yeah.
Mike
Granny's
Quayle,
my guy.
he's a great guy. How'd you get involved with Granny? How did you hire him as a sound guy?
He came in. He was hanging around. And basically, he was. I think at one point he was a guitar tech or something with Aerosmith, and he was hanging around, and he could do sound. And I don't know, maybe he started with a couple of people. I don't remember. It was just that. But him and we could look. I'm telling you, if he was on one side of the room and I couldn't see him, and I was on the other side and you couldn't see me, our facial expressions were we could hear a band, and our facial impressions would be the same. We just had a knack of like, oh.
So Mike Quayle from the Neighborhoods, the drummer, says, and this is a great one, we go back to my teenage years. Jimmy was always treating me like family. I felt welcome day or night, even considering I wasn't supposed to be in the Rat at the age of 16.
That's right. He was a roadie for freaking Richard Nolan.
All right. Do you remember making Lee Ritter the front man from the Inflictors, show you and Melanie
His marriage
wife's
certificate.
marriage
I
license.
did do that.
Why?
Don't ask me why, because I can't tell you why, but I did do that. Maybe I was just saying nobody could marry you. I didn't believe him. He got married. With no disrespect, believe me, but that's true.
Melanie's going to laugh at that because she'll be she sent me in that question. Another question I have is from Tyler Sweet, the roadie for the Neighborhoods. He says, ask Jimmy if he remembers the time he booted me out of the front door and 30 seconds later from the back door. Yep. He says he goes, I must have set some sort of record running that fast around the half block. You're grinning. Do you remember throwing him out the front door and the back door?
You know what it was? I think he just tipped me off of it when he started running. So I went right to the club and just waited for him. And he came pissing around and, no, you're not going anywhere.
All right, Willie Alexander, he sent me a message, and he goes, from The Lost and from Willie Alexander's Boom Boom Band, he goes, ask Jimmy if he remembers buying me a drink, and I drank it right down. Then I flipped the shot glass up in the air, and it stuck on the ceiling and never came down.
That is a true story. Otto Johnson, you know Otto?
Yeah.
Okay, Otto Johnson was standing right next to me. It was at the end of the night, and actually we were closed. But I got Willie a drink that went back. Then I got him, oh yeah, you can have a drink. So he took the drink, and he put it down and just flipped it up. We were like waiting, and it just didn't come down.
Willie says, I think that happened.
No, he did throw that. No, I remember that. It didn't come down. That's why I remember it. We were all like, Otto, when I was standing there, like, where did he flip it? We thought he flipped it, or he flipped it up and it got caught up in the, I don't know, I wouldn't have got caught in the ceiling, but it got caught up in the air duct because he was right by an air duct. But we didn't hear it even land. Do you know what I mean? It made no noise. And then, it was the end of the night, like, whoa.
Hey, tell people who Otto was.
Otto was like my first manager there, basically. Right. He again, I found him hanging around, so I drafted him into my crew. And he worked with me for about 7, 8, 9 years. I don't even remember how long. But he went off and he did his own thing, which was fine. Time to leave, and he did. And we're best of friends today. We go to breakfast a lot.
Hey, do you have any Gigi Allen stories? Gigi, the hard punk man and the king.
I think I threw him out one Sunday afternoon. He was just weird. He was just weird.
He was at Bun Ratty's once for sound check, and me and Mickey were there. And he gets on stage. He's there with his girlfriend, and he gets on stage and breaks the house mic. Mickey calls me up and goes, oh, man, you got to get your friend out of here. I'm going to throw him the fuck out of here. He can't be coming up here and bring it. So I went down because I knew he's a strange guy, and I always got along with the guy. And I went behind the bar, and I got a couple of draft beers for him and his girlfriend and me. And I said, Gigi, after we drink these free beers, you got to get the fuck out of here. And he was very nice, very cordial. 5 minutes later, he shook my hand after we drank the beers and left and gave me a hug. But he was an oddball, and you never knew what was going to happen next.
He was getting it. I think I don't really recall exactly, but I think he was getting into a fight with somebody outside. It was right outside the door, and it didn't have anything to do with the club. It was just him and someone else,
right,
who wasn't in the club. It was a Sunday afternoon. That much I can tell you. It was one of the shows I did in that era, and I just, you got to get out of here. I'm not going to have the cops come down and arrest me for what you just did. You know? So,
Hey, what band played there the most?
Nervous Eaters, probably.
Steve Cataldo's
Maybe,
band
and the Real Kids.
and the Real
maybe.
Kids.
Those
John
two would be.
Felice's band. All right, post-pandemic question. There's no real Boston music scene right now. Would a new visionary be able to change things around like you did 50 years ago?
I think somebody could do that, but it wouldn't be like what I did because it's all different now. It's a totally different way of doing business. I couldn't even duplicate what I did, back then. And, somebody can make an impact in something. Yeah. I mean, how and why, how it would happen, I'm not sure. I never thought about it. But, yeah, I mean, I think somebody can come up with an idea and follow through with it. I think you got problem now is laws. Everything has changed. Everything has changed. Brew pubs, big thing now. I don't know where live music is. I think live music in clubs should stay forever. The music's always changing, but I think it's still to play in a small venue. It's a cool thing, and I got to appreciate it when I used to go out to Colorado skiing. And at night, I'd go to a club, and of course, a lot of it was heavily country influenced music, which it's all right with me, but it's not my cup of tea. But I watched real players play, and guys were really good. I mean, really professional. I actually talked to Ben Orr about it one time. I told him, I said, you can make a living up there. You by your name and doing some of that stuff. I said, you'll make a mint. We talked, I talked about it with them, but didn't go too far, so whatever.
And you ran the Rat from 1974 to 1997, and it was torn down in 2000. And they built a hotel, a Commonwealth above it, and they have a Rat Suite there now. What's the story on the Rat Suite? What do you have the memorabilia? What do you loan to them there?
Well, I loaned them the back sign. The sign behind the stage that said the Rat.
Right.
And that's in the room. I was really kind of shocked, to say the least.
That's a luxury hotel. That's 148 luxury rooms there.
Yeah. Well, they put my room right next to the Red Sox suite. It was a little alcove.
Yeah.
And in the Red Sox suite, they put a baseball. So Asa Bredner got me a microphone, and I put the microphone outside of our room. And it's kind of cool. I mean, they try to get stuff. They really hired a company out in Denver, out in Colorado somewhere, I guess, and they were just design. And what they did is they showed me some of the designs, and I said, "Oh my God, you can't do this. This is not what we are. What we like." We're a little different, real different, And I had actually talked to some of the people. I said, "You ever hear of CBGBs?" And I'm going that's what the looks like CBGBs up, and that's what you got here. That's what we do, and it's cool. I appreciate. Believe me, I appreciated it. They gave me a night where I invited people to that room.
Right.
It was packed. I mean, a lot of people came, and everything was, top shelf. And then they came up with this idea. And the general manager said to me, you did an album, huh, back then? And I said, oh, yeah, I did some recordings and stuff like that. And then I kind of looked at him and said, huh? Don't you even? And he just said that. And I think I was shocked. I was definitely shocked. I was just like, you want me to do an album in the room? We did an album in the room.
I remember you told me once years ago that you said about the first album, how'd you get myself into this mess in the first place?
Oh, I think the thing on the first album, the real test for me was my ability to do it was one thing, but the musicians played. They did everything in their power to do a great job, and it was great. Don't get me wrong, absolutely unbelievable. The last night that we recorded, I took the slave tapes home, and I already had dubs on the small reels, and I lugged them into my cellar. I was living in Salem, New Hampshire at the time. I got them all in there, and I was really tired. And I just sat there, and all of a sudden I looked and I said, what do you do now? What do you do?
You had two volumes, volume 1 in 1976 and volume 2 recorded at the Hotel Commonwealth Rat Room 41 years later in 2017. It was your idea, and you got John Kalishis, who later played with Ben Orr's band from the Cars, as the producers. You saw something happening. What was the story about that?
I think I got the idea from Willie. There was something, because Willie was always making records.
Willie
and his Mass Ave record was a significant. Yeah. And at that time, I was starting to get records, 45 RPMs from New York, and with the bands, and that's this thing was happening where I said, well, why don't we just get everybody together and just do an album? I meant it, but I didn't realize it was going to take me 3 nights just to record. And, God knows how many hours of listening and everything. I was really happy. And when I did it, I realized that I had heard all these songs so many times. So we were in the studio, and Jesse Henderson was the engineer, and we were in there and we were doing the Real Kids things. And I said, Jesse, Alpo sings here. And it was the first time I said, like this is what he do. And Jesse's looking at me and he finds it. It's on the track. And now you bring the voice up. Well, when we got the album done and the Real Kids had heard the song, and Alpo was, oh, you did, you're the greatest, because I got his voice up on the thing.
Right.
There were a couple of little things in there that I did. Wow, what? And then I'm running the club too. I mean,
right.
At that time I'm still booking the bands and stuff. And I'm like, oh my God. And I get people calling me, New York, Chicago, everywhere.
Right.
I'm trying to come there. And I'm going like, what is this? Yeah. What did I unload here? And of course I smiled because I figured I was going to get rich.
David Robinson, the drummer for the Cars, his brother, Paul, was in a band called The Boys.
The Boys, yeah.
And you put 2 of the songs on there. And he asked me to ask you, he's only heard those 2 songs from the live set. What did you do to the other part of his set?
I don't know what happened to a lot of that stuff. Each band had their own tape.
Yes.
And what I did is I put it on a 1/4 inch and I ran the entire set on a 1/4 inch because that's what I was listening to.
Right.
To see if things were there. Because I was listening to this on a reel-to-reel.
Right.
Back then I was listening to the stuff up in the office. And so a lot of my stuff landed going upstairs. But once I was through with the studios and stuff, I took all the slave tapes and I sent them to a friend of mine so that they would be safe and no one had access to them. And then we actually went to record. We recorded Volume 2. We did another album because at that time, Bill Reisman from Northern Studios wanted a piece of the action. He wanted to get in on it because I did the first one and I didn't mix it at Northern. And everybody, all of a sudden, all the musicians wanted to be a part of it. They wanted to mix their own. They wanted to do this. They wanted to do that, one thing after another. And I would have never had control. So we did a second one. And unfortunately, Reisman took the tapes. And he did it when I was away because I had the sound. I had a 16-track board upstairs or 32, I forget. And we were recording it. That's back in the day. And then we were also doing radio broadcasts with COZ and BCN.
Right.
We were doing some Sunday night things with COZ.
Right.
Recording, the local bands with the flavor of the day, whoever was hot, and would record them and do it live from the rack, and which was great. But I don't know. I think I never got a hold of my second album tapes. Bill Reisman, unfortunately, got killed down in Brazil, and God knows where the hell they went. Nobody knew. I mean, I talked to everybody about it.
What's the similarities and the differences between Live at the Rat Volume 1 and Live at the Rat Volume 2?
You mean the latest one?
Yeah. What's it? I know you had
it's night and day. When I finished, when the product was finished, it was just like, to me, it sounded great.
Right.
And when it was remastered, I didn't do it. I mean, I wouldn't have known how to do it anyways in this day and age. And then, it came out good. But when I did the second one, it was done in the freaking room in Kenmore, the hotel room, and it was done on computer.
Right.
It was a computer. And I was just, and I just kind of looked and went,
yeah. Technology is so much better now.
Oh my God! It was absolutely, it was so true. And I mean, I Oedipus and Carter Allen and Steve Morse were in the room. I think I wasn't interviewing them, but I was using them for the DVD on the thing. And they were in the room, and I said, "Oh, you want to hear something?" So I told them, "Look at this, look this up, play this." Right? First words out of Oedipus was like, "You didn't record this in here." "Oh yeah." And the engineer turns around and goes, "Oh yeah, this is all right here." Sound was like phenomenal, night and day. I mean,
and you had some of the same bands from the first album.
Yeah,
on the second
that was my little. That was. Oh God, that's funny. I mean, it is funny.
42 years later.
Huh?
42 years later, the same band.
They dragged me, honest to God, they dragged me back in. I'll tell you a quick story. The one of the bands, friends of mine, had decided that they were going to pull up. Well, they were going to pull up. And I said, "Listen, you can do a solo. That's as far as I'm concerned. You can do a solo. You're playing on this. You understand me? You're playing. Can't do it." Oh, bullshit. And I'm in a restaurant, right? And I'm like, ah. I get off the phone with him. I was fuming, and this thought came right to me. "I'll show you, son of a bitch." I called one of my waitresses who worked. Her son was in a band.
I know you're talking about.
High school. They were in high school.
Yeah.
And I said to her, "Here's what you're going to do. I want you to have that band. Now, this is Saturday. Monday morning, I want you to be at the Hotel Commonwealth with their equipment. They don't have to bring everything. I told them what they had to bring. And I'll record them for this album." "Yeah, but they got to go to school." I said, "Don't worry about it. Do it." They showed up, and these kids met Willie, and they were impressed. And they were like, "Whoa, wow, this is so cool." And they are on the album, and they did a cover song.
Are you talking about Robin Bezra and Jimmy Bez band?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yep, that's who it is. And the other person was Steve Cataldo. I was going to hang him. But if you'll notice that Steve Cataldo
From the
is on
Nervous
the album,
Eaters.
and
Yes.
the band played. And it was better the way that worked out. It kind of worked out really, really good.
Right.
And I'm happy for that because we're friends. And I.
Right.
And the Dropkick Murphys will surprise you on that. That was they did something on that about me, and I was like, I didn't even know anything about it. It's like, I got the playback, and I was like, oh wow.
Hey, you were talking about Oedipus recently, just a few minutes ago. He was from WBCN, and I just wanted to mention that the Rathskeller was the original home of the Rock and Roll Rumble for the first 3 years from BCN, and it was called the Rumble at the Rat. Right?
That's right. Yep.
You guys were,
I came up with that somewhere along the line, and now I was a little more established, and I got invited to be a judge at the Lowell State, and they were doing a battle of the bands type thing. And I forget the guy that got me involved in it, and he said, "No, you really should do this. You know more than And they were very happy to have me as a judge. And I went to the thing, and that's where I got the idea. So now what happened was Charlie Kendall, who was a program director at the time, and we went to have a meeting. And my meeting was scheduled for Friday afternoon around 4 o'clock. Well, it seems that Friday, WBCN decided to go on strike. And so Kendall and I met, but, we couldn't, there was he had a more important problem to deal with that. But the idea was there. And so finally we got, we probably took us maybe a year or two before we did it. And we did it. And, they just wanted to expand it to a larger venue, basically. So whatever.
What kind of memorabilia from the Rathskeller do you still have that isn't in the room that all these years later you just won't part with?
The outside sign, the Rathskeller sign, is in my son is hanging up in his garage, in his barn in New Hampshire. I wouldn't part with that. I let the Boston's use it at the show, and that's probably that and the rat sign were probably the most. I've got a lot of crap, stuff from the
Right.
Lights and stuff like that.
Right.
My kids were going through those like, oh God, I don't know what's left. But it's not a big deal to me. It's that's just stuff. I got no place to put it.
I have a pack of Rathskeller matches unused. How much do you think I can sell them on eBay for?
I know. I can't believe it. I had a box and I left them down the boatyard, and everybody was taking them. They took all the matches. I was like,
Oof.
I couldn't believe it. These things are valuable.
I first met you when Mickey O'Halloran, my business partner from the Beat magazine, who used to work with you at the Kenmore Club, drove me up to the Rathskeller in 1983 or 1984, and we sat in. And I was a little intimidated. You two were like really legendary people in the Boston music scene, and here I was sitting there talking to you guys, just reminiscing about the current music scene, the old music scene, and it was just really wild. And here I am talking to you. You've always been very generous and very good to me, and I really appreciate that, Jimmy. But today you are happily retired and busy fishing everywhere north of Boston. Tell me about what you're doing now. You own your own boat?
Yeah, I don't fish that much. I let other people catch fish. I run the boat. No, I spend a lot of time on my boat, and I've got grandchildren now, and I see them, and that's important. My family's important to me. But I love spending time on the boat. I wish I could ski, but I replaced 2 knees. I'm banged up. But, I'm happy. I never really thought of what I did. I think it's people have come to me and told me what I did and how things I did, why I did something. And that's the only thing you can get out of me. And I'll go, no, I didn't do that because of that. I did this because that's the way I did it in the time. Never really knew. I never really understood when I sold the rat that this would happen. And it took a new life on itself, but it was like brewing underneath. And my problem was I just disconnected. I mean, I disconnected from everybody, sort of like everybody. Very few people I contacted or had any kind of relationship when I left. But about 5 years later, I went out one night to see bands I knew. And I forget who it was. It could have been the Real Kids, could have been Robin, could have, those people. And I went out, and so many people talked to me. People I didn't know. I knew their face, but I didn't know them. And I felt this thing about, like there was something there, but I couldn't, I couldn't put my finger on it yet.
Why did the Rat close? And did you sell it to Boston University?
No, I sold it to the developers out of Maryland, but they were like a holding company, and they somehow BU got a piece of it because BU owned one. BU had started buying the buildings around, and
it's tax-free when they buy it.
Yeah, but they landed up paying me some, but they didn't. It was a holding company or something, and they paid me for a couple of years. And then,
why did you decide to close it?
Huh?
Why did you decide to close the Rat?
Oh, I was burnt. I really was burnt. I was tired. I was tired. I couldn't. I just wanted to get out. I needed a long vacation. If I went somewhere for 3 months or something and then came back, I might have been different. But I don't. But actually, I don't think it would have happened. I think it was time for me to leave. I think I just couldn't see myself doing this more and more. It was just like, I'm burnt. I was like, and the funny part about it is I talked to Hilly back in the day. We communicated, right up until his death. And he was trying to get me involved in some CBGB thing in Las Vegas, and it was like, and that kind of gave me, oh, really? Like, maybe there is life after the rat. Maybe it's a rat too, whatever. Whatever.
But all right, my last question, the way I end all my Wachtelligence podcasts is, what was the first concert you ever attended, Jimmy?
I went to the Boston Arena, and I saw Chuck Berry. I believe maybe Fats Domino. There was a multiple, maybe the Coasters, but these were the original bands back. The Boston Arena was over Northeast, and I was probably in high school. And but Chuck Berry, I definitely saw. I would think he would have been the first one I saw. I really like Chuck Berry.
Jimmy, thank you so very much for talking to me. This was just a lot of fun. You look great. It was great talking to you. I really appreciate you spreading the word on
no problem at all.
What a great life and career you've had. And I just want to thank you for all the free beer I've drank on out of Europe. And I want to thank you.
Imagine if I could get all the money with the free beers that I gave away.
Yes, I agree.
We could probably fill the Charles River.
Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Wachtelligence. You can connect with me on Facebook at Wachtelligence. Thanks to my producers, my son Harrison and David Schwartz, and Harvey Brooks for my theme song. Don't forget to subscribe.
I don't care what you think of me. Don't need no jailer to set me free. Don't want strangers filling up my cup. Don't need no advisor to show me down from up.